Hello, everybody, and we are live. Welcome back to the day 2 after show of the RNC. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're new. We got a lot to talk about tonight, and we are going to be talking about everything that took place currently day 2. And the tweet I have up on screen basically encapsulates all of my thoughts in one tweet, because some people didn't like every aspect about day 1. You know, they didn't like the speeches that the ordinary people gave, or they didn't like some of the speakers, or they felt that they were pandering too much or whatever. You didn't see a lot of that tonight. You didn't see a lot of that critique tonight. And I think that messaging-wise, I anticipated tonight would have higher energy, because I agree the speeches, I thought the substance was decent yesterday. It's a lot more high energy today, and we saw a wide array of speeches given by a lot of different people. You saw Vivek Ramaswamy, you saw Marco Rubio, you saw Trump's primary opponents back-to-back, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis. I'm sure we'll get into some of that, especially with the Haley speech, which, having her there was definitely, controversial in these circles, and for good reason too. But you look at the fact you had all the senators, you had congressmen speak, you had a wide variety of people from basically every side of the Republican Party coming together behind Donald Trump, and you saw a lot of talk about immigration, crime, safety. That was the theme of tonight. Some people were like, where was that yesterday? But the reality behind it is that there's a theme for every day. And yesterday was about making America wealthy again, talking more about the economy. Today is more about making America safe again. You had a lot of these individuals there that were talking about their family experiences. Their kids were dying because of fentanyl, or illegal aliens that came into the country under Biden and his unprecedented wave of illegal immigration that ended up taking out members of their families. Seriously, these are issues that definitely pull at the heartstrings of the American people, and that was key. And when you have a convention, you have a big platform, millions upon millions of people that'll be watching them, you got to take advantage of the opportunity and just showcase the message as good and competently as you possibly can. And they did exactly that tonight. You had a lot of great speeches. I'm sure we'll get into who's, who gave their favorite speech of the night. I'm sure that's up for debate somewhat. Personally, I don't even know if I have a favorite, but you had a lot of good speeches. There weren't a whole lot of speeches where I said, oh, that speech was bad altogether. I thought that you had a lot of different people, different wings of the party, but you have to unite the party. That's the real objective of the RNC. There's a reason why Nikki Haley was at the RNC. Donald Trump asked her to go to the RNC, and mainly it's because of the whole unity thing. I don't like Nikki Haley. I'll never like Nikki Haley. That's not going to change. But she is somebody that had 4.3 million voters in the Republican primary. Now, a lot of those people don't like Haley, just voted for her because she was the useful idiot against Trump. I am aware. But you also have some people who are independent voters who don't like Trump or Biden and may have voted for Biden in 2020, then said, hey, you know what? I'll vote for Nikki Haley because, I don't like Trump either. And then she can make a case to those people about Trump. If it gets 1% of her voter base, that's 43,000 voters. How much was the election decided by in 2020? 43,000 votes across 3 states. So every single vote counts. People saying it was a dumb decision to have her don't understand politics. If you didn't want to like her being there, I don't really like her, but I see why she was there. And I think in her speech, obviously not going to touch base on certain things that I might prioritize or agree with or whatever, but that's kind of what she's going to do to make that case. Ron DeSantis also was there. But you had a lot of Senate candidates there that gave good speeches. You had a lot of Congress people as well. I mean, Tom Emmer, big rhino, but he brought the house down. It's like I didn't know that guy had it in him with that level of energy. You had Ben Carson. You had Trump's daughter-in-law who runs the RNC, and Laura Trump. You had a lot of people, a lot of inspirational speeches from just ordinary Americans that are suffering due to the regime that we have right now, due to the left's policies, due to Joe Biden Kamala Harris, as they keep throwing her in there because they know that there's a slim chance, but a more than 10% chance that she might be the nominee at this point. And they're aware of that, even though I think it's going to end up being Biden at the end of the day. But we do have a lot to get to. We do have a lot to talk about. And that's just basically what I saw. But this is a different level of convention, because you watched the 2020 convention. There was no heart. There was no, emotion necessarily in that convention compared to what we even had tonight. And not a single speech that anybody gave is really that memorable. Does anybody remember a single speech? I don't even remember a whole lot of Trump's speech during the 2020 RNC. That's how non-memorable the RNC was. But 2016, I remember a lot of speeches, and this felt like one of those nights, except it's a little bit different because the movement's far bigger now. Trump's base is far bigger now, and we are united, and, divided party can't stand. The Democrats are divided. And you see that. They have Joe Biden. They have Kamala Harris. They don't even know if they want to keep Biden as their nominee. Voters in general, Democrats, only 30-some% are enthused to vote for Biden. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that vote against Trump, but Donald Trump has this opportunity and is using this opportunity to make his case to the American people, and he is doing it well, and you're seeing that unfold on the stage. You had a lot of great speeches that took place tonight, and different people, like I said, will probably pick different favorite speeches, and we're going to get into super chats. If you guys want to send in some super chats, feel free. We already have a decent amount of them already, but it just showcases the fact that this RNC is competent, they are disciplined, and all the people that were criticizing last night, for the most part, not all of them, but a lot of the people that were criticizing last night are dead silent right now. And like I said, day one is usually the weakest day. Maybe you could say it was a 7.5 out of 10. You had Trump. He came in. Trump came in again today. Vance was there by his side. And I love the fact that they keep panning to Trump. Trump is sitting there. He's listening to all of these speeches. And it's definitely emotionally moving for him as well. But it is really wholesome to see him listen to it. And it definitely humanizes him to just see him in the crowd looking down and smiling. And you just had a lot of really, really good speeches. And there's really nothing that the media is going to be able to sit there and pick apart and complain about it. Even a lot of the people that were complaining about last night on the right, because they're just, Trump derangement syndrome, whatever, agitation. You don't really see a lot of that tonight either. So not only was it disciplined, it was more disciplined than the night before, and they definitely decided to front load a lot of their solid speakers, and you had a lot of solid speeches back to back, very high energy. My one critique of last night, above anything else, was you didn't really have a lot of energy. Charlie Kirk gave one of the more energetic speeches. You didn't really have a lot of energy altogether, but tonight was a little bit different in that regard because there was more energy, there was more emotion, especially when you had all of the families of the people that passed away due to Joe Biden's really atrocious policies. And that's something that needs to be highlighted. It absolutely is. You had every Senate candidate. I thought that most, if not all of them, did a really, really good job in their speeches. You had Mike Rogers from Michigan. He gave a good speech. He likely will be the nominee, and at the rate things are going, he's probably going to end up being the next senator out of Michigan, the first Republican senator to serve since Spencer Abraham in the 1990s. He lost in 2000 to Stabenow. And there's a very good chance that seat could flip back into the Republican column. There's a lot of things going on right here, right now. You have a lot of unity. You have a lot of different speakers that are bringing something to the table, and definitely it helps out. You talk about these down ballot races, having all these people speak, it does work wonders in that department as well. So you see that. You see a lot of these people that maybe have been out of the spotlight, like Ben Carson as well, stepping in, giving a very good speech. Marco Rubio stepping in, giving a very good speech on Trump's behalf. Many people will say that probably was his potential VP speech as well. I'm not entirely sure if that's 100% true or not, but we will hear, it seems, from J.D. Vance tomorrow, which is definitely really going to be something as well. So that should be a very, crucial speech, because a lot of people are going to be paying attention. A lot of people don't know who J.D. Vance is, or they're not sold on J.D. Vance. This is his opportunity to step up and kind of sell himself as well to the American people. Why he fits well in the ticket, why, kind of sell his brand in a way, kind of make himself appear likable. Possibly if he does that well, he could bring in some voters to the ticket as well. So all around, you look at the RNC, it's shaping up to be a resounding success, a little emotional because of the incident that took place on Saturday. And you have a lot of people as well that are, getting arrested around the RNC for certain suspicious things. It's a very scary world we're living in right now, especially in politics. Who knows what's exactly happening, but still they are, ramping up security. They're making sure everything is fine, especially within the building, but also the, city around the building, the few blocks as well. So we are going to get to Super Chats a little bit early. And I do want to kind of see what the people have to say about this as well. So Dustin Enoch says, Haley gave a surprisingly strong speech for Donald Trump. And we will talk about that. And I think it's important that it's being brought up, because she's able to go out there, and I don't like her. She's a snake. She's angling for future, politics, and people need to understand that, and I think that they probably do. And maybe she's angling for a spot in his administration. I don't necessarily believe that she's going to get one, which is a very good thing. But the fact that she can go out there when she was seen as somebody who would, burn the bridge with Trump for good and make the case for Trump to some of her voters, that's a really good thing. If you're looking at that and you're like, no, I want her far away, you just don't understand politics. If they invite her to 2028 when she doesn't run for president or whatever, that's a problem, because there's no reason for them to do so. But Trump himself made that decision because it's, a smart decision to make. And when she goes out there, you probably have a mix of boos. You couldn't exactly hear, but there were not a lot of cheers for her when she walked out. When DeSantis walked out, because he already endorsed Trump months ago, you had a lot of cheers for Ron DeSantis, who did seem a little bit more natural now that he's not running for president, which begs the question, was he forced into it? And I think the answer is obviously yes, but still, the DeSantis speech, it was all right. That's pretty much about it. The Haley speech is probably more of a focus. DeSantis still doesn't have a lot of charisma. He's not the best public speaker, but still, I think he did okay. It's not really worth criticizing. But Haley's speech, I think, is the more intriguing one because of the fact that you had 4.3 million people that she was able to get to vote for. Some of those people, doesn't matter. They don't even like her. They have TDS. They wanted to stop Trump in the primary. I'm aware of that. I get that. But still, you do have some independents that did it too. And those are the type of people that Donald Trump could maybe win over. So her being there, giving that speech, it's a strategic thing. And I can't blame Donald Trump for making that decision. And when she said, I'm here because Trump asked me to be here, then she was met with a resounding applause. And you kind of saw that transpire from that point forward. And the rest of her speech was relatively, in my opinion, mediocre. But nonetheless, if she's there, again, it's an optics win. I don't think people understand, like, who exactly is Trump supposed to invite to the convention if you're not going to be able to invite people that are on the fence or people that could possibly sway voters, because the whole point of the convention is to sway voters. It's not to be like a, Trump celebration festival for all of his loyal supporters, which they're there and they should be a part of it. But it's also about how do you expand your voter base? How do you nail the coffin in Joe Biden? Those are the most important questions that need to be addressed while you're planning such a thing, which is why it's important that you have a competent disciplined, well-messaged convention. And you had people talking about how they interact with Trump personally, trying to soften his image to some of these voters. And I think that they did that. You look at what happened with the Sarah Sanders speech. She did that. Laura did it in the final speech of the night. All around, Ben Carson did it as well, but you had a lot of people that were just telling their personal stories with Donald Trump, and that's something that is also a positive thing. So let's see. We have more super chats. Johnny Hartdog says, I was listening to J.D. Vance and his stories, exactly what mine is. I hated Trump in 2016, but I voted against Hillary, and eventually he won me over. Vance's story is what mine is. I'll be watching the convention tonight as of today. I'm an official Alaska resident and registered to vote. I finally got it done after 6 hours at the DMV. 5 yesterday and 1 today. Well, congratulations. But in terms of the Vance thing, I think that Vance is an acquired taste. I think he's going to win a lot of people over. There's a lot of Vance derangement syndrome. I see it on different wings of the right. And obviously, I kind of understand why people would be skeptical. You have somebody who didn't support Trump initially, but if you look at how he's improved, he has a record. A lot of people don't have a record at the national level. He was the first senator to endorse Donald Trump in 2024, and he did so at a time when it was probably not the most politically convenient to step forward and say, yeah, I support Donald Trump. So you have a lot of reasons to prove the fact that he probably is loyal. Some of those initial Trump skeptics end up being some of the most loyal backers. And in terms of policy, how many of these other people, how many other VP contenders are as well versed on, how do we cut immigration levels? How do we, implement trade protectionism? He's from these areas. He's a protectionist. He understands what it's like to be hit with, this Rust Belt decay, probably more than anybody else. He's seen both sides. When he was I guess you would say, on the never Trump side of things, he was, in a bubble. That bubble ended up getting bursted when he realized that Trump was actually a very good president, and it changed his worldview. And there's plenty of things that changed his worldview. It doesn't matter. If you pick Rubio, you'd probably have a lot more pushback because of the whole 2016 primary. If you pick Burgum, you'd have a lot of pushback because of even what Burgum said last year. Vance is somebody that I think that he has a lot of upside. I don't think he hurts the ticket the way things stand right now, though. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. But I really feel as if tomorrow is going to be crucial for him, and I think he's going to hit it out of the park because he's a very, very intelligent guy, and I think he's going to deliver. But we have another super chat here. Comrade Dushkin says, just saw a Bloomberg report that said Trump was considering Jamie Dimon as Commerce Secretary, keeping Powell as the Fed chair. Very concerning. Well, how many reports do we see every day that don't turn out to be real? So, I would take it with a grain of salt. Personally, I think that that would not be a good decision overall. I think it would be a bad decision because that's, again, you're putting somebody in there who would be the CEO of a major bank, and you talk about draining the swamp. It's probably best to err on the side of caution or concern regarding those individuals. But let's see, we got more super chats. Mike Oxhart says, I don't like Nikki Haley, but I liked her speech. I thought it was okay. I personally don't believe that it was great. I think that it was good for, political purposes. I think it was a very politically astute speech for Donald Trump. The fact that she was there helps. The fact that she gave a speech making a case for Trump and burying the hatchet, whatever. Yeah, obviously, we don't want her in the cabinet, but her at the RNC is smart. I mean, you'd have to be dumb to turn it down just because of the fact that she was his number one opponent and the fact that the media was hyping her up against him, and the fact that she's still standing, with him, even though it's a grift. I still think it's a win-win for everybody, but we just need to make sure that we keep her at an arm's length. It's not like she's going to be in the cabinet. Trump said she'll be in our team in some way. Well, that's kind of basically what you saw. End of discussion. Trevor Hint says Democrats are going to have to do at least 10 times the amount of redacting that they did in 2020 to beat Trump again. Yeah, I don't think they're going to really be able to. Any more than last time. They'll be put on blast for real. And I don't think that they can handle that. I think that they know Trump's going to win. I think that they're bracing for impact as things stand right now. Luke Newman says Elon Musk is donating $41 million every month. I'm well aware. That's a very, very good thing. And Elon just biting the bullet, supporting Donald Trump, something he did not do in 2020, something that he did not formally do until now, I think is a big power player, one of the most powerful men in the world. That is what you need to have on your side. And a lot of different people are turning to Donald Trump right now. And you're seeing it. Elon has improved a lot over the past 4 years. And the fact that Trump has somebody like that in his corner is a very, very good asset politically, but mainly financially. And the fact that he's going to be helping out Trump, it's absolutely huge. We got to make this thing big. We can't just settle for like a 1-vote victory. It'd be thrilling, but we gotta win. This should not be a contest. We gotta win this thing. Dean Cream Between says Barron/Rep 2040. Well, he wouldn't be eligible, I don't think, until 44. But we'll see. Hat04 for 20 says, huge step up from last night. I'm very pleased with Haley and DeSantis' speech tonight. Great how so many people brought everything back to the border. And for more praising of God, I can't wait to see what Vance/Trump says. Well, this is what people need to understand, is that last night they look at it and they're like, well, why is there, so much pandering, or why was there X, Y, and Z? And I understand some of the concerns, but every night has a theme. If that was every single night, maybe they'd be able to make a case for why it's a little weak. But, tonight was strictly business, about the border, about safety. And Donald Trump was there, and it was a very, I guess you would say, well put together, measured, disciplined evening, more so than last night, which I think was more decent and better received in the real world than some people on Twitter. And that's fine, but I feel like this was probably around 4 points better on like the out of 10 scale, which I wouldn't even say last night was like a 6. That was probably like a 7 point something, especially because Trump was there. But tonight I think was above a 10. And the bar has been raised, and I think that it's probably going to be matched tomorrow night. We'll see how Donald Trump's speech is on the final night. But, 2016 vibes, yeah, I think it's a little bit different. And I think it's probably even in some ways better in 2024. In some ways it's better. And you have a lot of people that are like, well, actually, we need 2016. We need to go back to the 2016 RNC. And honestly, when I saw stuff like the whole Sikh prayer, I said, this is weird. I don't know who this appeals to. But they've done it at every RNC going back to 2012. And you could question it, and you should probably question it. You're having a religious prayer for like the 15th, 16th largest religion in the United States or whatever. It's kind of a little strange. I think it probably turns off more people than it brings in. And at that point, it's just like, I'm kind of confused why they do it, but it's not like this is a new thing. I mean, they've done this every year since 2012. So this whole notion, the RNC is getting woker, like these people are romanticizing 2016. A lot of them probably weren't even old enough to vote in 2016. I mean, I wasn't. But I have a memory, but you have some people that are criticizing it that are like, 18, 19 years old. And it's like, you were probably like 10 back during the 2016 RNC. You have zero right to talk about an event you haven't seen other than some like, maybe 60-second Trump clips of his speech that were pretty epic. That's pretty much what it comes down to. So you have a lot of people that think they know more than they do, and they don't. But it's a little bit deeper than that. And that's not to say it's perfect. I'm not defending every aspect of it. But, I mean, if these people even watch the 2020 RNC, that was a disaster. This is miles better. It's not even a contest, especially tonight. But last night was better than pretty much any night of the 2020 RNC. This night was a banger, all around a banger. You can't deny that. And a lot of people that were angry last night or confused last night, they're a little quiet now, which I think is a positive sign. And I wonder how CNN and the mainstream media is coping about it as well. But let's see. Jonathan Williams for 20 Says, as someone who is authoritarian center on the political compass, I liked all the talk about law and order and safety. Our society is being destroyed with crime, especially drug-related, not really a fan of libertarianism. And that's exactly what this event basically tries to do. You talk about the themes, and you talk about the appeal. Donald Trump has that appeal. He's tough on crime. He's tough. He wants to be tough on crime. That's his agenda. Tough on the border. Tough on illegal immigration, tough on what needs to be done. And you have a lot of speakers that go out there and they effectively communicate his message for him or communicate the case for Trump and against his opposition. Very emotionally moving speeches from several everyday Americans. And the fact that that's being highlighted and the fact that the RNC is using emotion, that's great. Because think about the 2020 RNC. You know, they were a little soft, a little weak on crime. They're like, oh, Trump let people out of jail. He let drug dealers out of jail. This is like what they were touting. And you had drug dealers that were giving speeches. Now you have the opposite. And in terms of like the outreach to the minorities or whatever, the 2020 was pandering. There's a difference between pandering and outreach. When they had the one woman speak that her son got murdered in New York and the guy got let off for a 7-year sentence, that's going to have a lot more appeal than, oh, Trump signed this bill that let people out of jail. So you're already seeing a massive improvement, and it's not even close. It's not even a contest. It's a different set of rules that they're playing by in this convention. And if you talk about the RNC, the Republican Party under Ronna Romney McDaniel was an utter disaster, a total disgrace, and now it's been repealed and replaced by competent leadership. You have Michael Whatley, you have Laura Trump, you got a lot of other great people in the mix that were not in the mix before, and they know how to win, and they're smart, and they're doing it right now. They're partially why Donald Trump is rising in the polls as much as he is. Obviously, Trump in and of himself is one thing. He transcends a lot of incompetency, but still, the fact that he's got a competent apparatus now behind him, and now he's got Elon Musk funding ballot harvesting operations and all that, I mean, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible what we've done to this Republican Party. It is not what it was 4 years ago. It is not what it is 2 years ago, a year ago, 5 months ago. This is a different apparatus. It's not the same thing, and I think it's a very good thing, but we got to put it to use and got to win. We got to win in November, and I think we will. And I think tonight is something that somewhat confirms it even more. But let's see, Jimmy Yousefi says Secret Service agent posted on 4chan that he got arrested by the FBI and fired for redacting the shooter. The head of SS do for 3 minutes, but ordered not to. I don't know if that's true. 4chan is 4chan. I don't think that's a really valid source. You have a lot of trolls on 4chan. I wouldn't say that that's a very legitimate source. Could it technically be true? I'd probably have to wait on that. But just because somebody on 4chan anonymously posts something like that, I'd take it with the tiniest grain of salt that you could possibly take it with. Johnny Heartdog for 10 says, by the way, I was late getting into the super chat because of the DMV, so I broke my tradition of starting out. Please don't hold that against me. I'll do better next time. It's great to be free in Alaska. Well, it's all right. You still got in before the show. For the most part, it seemed. The Omega Ranger for 2 says 6'3", 215 pounds, 45, 47. Well, you forgot 91 counts, you forgot 34 convictions, you forgot 2 terms, and you forgot 1 ear. There's plenty of other statistics to add to that. He's got a lot of good numbers. Hopefully we can add his electoral vote count to it, and hopefully it's 300 something. Let's see, BRGRS says, Nick Fuentes must be a never-Trumper now. All he does is bash him on X. Well, some things don't change. I mean, what can I say? I mean, it's the same guy who wanted Kanye for president 2 years ago, isn't it? I mean, let's be real. Base Katz's DNC will be a clown show or a circus jerkus. Yeah, it'll be abortion con. Abortion, abortion, abortion. Lies, lies, lies. Project 25, Project 25, Project 25. That's all they got. They have nothing of substance. They have nothing of note. They've lost. They possibly could get destroyed generationally. They could take a generational loss this November. It's very possible at the rate things are going, absolutely. Let's see. John Waffle H2P says, I don't think Haley's presence really added anything. Most neocons will never vote for Trump, and 90% of her base were either Democrats or never Trumpers. I personally think that DeSantis carries more. Well, I think that DeSantis's initial support base, and I'm not talking about Twitter people because those individuals are not representative of real life, but DeSantis's IRL support base largely did end up going for Donald Trump in the primaries that were after Iowa. And we saw that. So I'm not entirely sure that he carried more weight. I agree that, some of these never Trump types, they're not going to vote, but it's more about actual everyday voters, not people on Twitter, not these neocons, talking heads that never backed Donald Trump that supported Nikki Haley. So it's a little deeper than that, in my opinion. Like I said, her presence is something that's a little annoying, but I understand for the sake of having somebody that will unite the party together. If Bernie Sanders got the Democrat nomination, you think they're going to shelve Joe Biden from speaking in 2020? Of course not. The far left would not do that because the far left is more pragmatic than some of the people in the more, I guess you would say, the nationalist populist sphere. The acceptable hard right is what I should say. And they win. They get everything they want, even though their wing of the party doesn't even get in power. Our wing does, and then you have a lot of people that just complain about everything and nothing gets done. They don't move the window. So let's see. Sam Madsen says Biden's announcing plans to enact term limits on the Supreme Court and ending immunity for presidents. Is he even trying to win at this point? Well, there's no way he could do it without a constitutional amendment. And you talk about threat to the Constitution, threat to democracy. He's a threat to the Republic. He's a threat to whatever the Founding Fathers' vision for the country was. And that's an issue. That's a problem with Joe Biden. Joe Biden trying to say, well, I don't like the Supreme Court, so we need to, give them term limits. What does that exactly entail? What does that exactly do? I don't think that really is going to have enough widespread support, and I don't think that the average American is seething about the Supreme Court the way that he is. They're just not. Something like Roe v. Wade getting overturned wasn't enough to do it. The immunity clause thing, I feel like, is not going to be a top issue anyways, and it's something that's actually just in the Constitution, period. I mean, the original interpretations of the immunity clause, you would have a constitutional amendment. That doesn't mean the president can just, gun down people on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Even if they say it's an official act, all they can do is fearmonger. All they can do is lie. But, Biden just says what he's told by these DEI staffers that he has, and he's smooth-brained. He's brain dead. He'll just believe it. His IQ at this point's like room temperature. And, it was never all that high, but at least it was over 100 10 years ago. So make sure you guys like the stream. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're new. We are gaining quite a bit here. Video kind of popped off today, which is pretty cool. But yeah, definitely does not help him out electorally. James for $50 says, I've been seeing a lot of people saying that the polls are going to be wrong and that Trump will lose because too many people are never Trumpers. Even with how bad Biden is, they'll still vote for him because they hate Trump. This is a real concern. Is it a real concern? I think the polls could be wrong by a few points here and there. There's no denying that the polls could be wrong. Are the polls going to be wrong because a majority of Americans just are seething at Donald Trump? No. The Trump hatred fatigue is very real. And the Trump fatigue, even if it was real, seemingly is being reversed. The foaming at the mouth hatred of Trump was at its peak in 2020, where they were saying Trump is an evil dictator who murdered 1 million Americans with COVID because he didn't lock down the country enough, is what they claimed. But that really wasn't enough. Wasn't enough in and of itself to take him down. And at this stage in the game, Biden has completely faltered. Biden is no longer a generic Democrat who was in the basement, but he showed up for the debates and he could talk somewhat coherently. So, no, I think that Biden is completely going to get screwed in this election unless something drastically changes. Just because the economy's not good, the border's wide open, foreign policy's a disaster. But we got to vote. We have to vote. Can't take it for granted. It's not like Biden can't win. But to say that the American public just hates Trump too much and that's why Trump would lose, I disagree with that 100%. That's not what the data shows. That's not what anything shows. So they can cling to their special elections with 3% turnout as a reason for why Donald Trump is screwed and let them, kick their feet up and do nothing. I hope that that's what they believe, but we don't need to believe that. And we also don't need to believe that there's zero shot Biden can win, because there is. So we got to vote like hell and make sure that Trump is able to win. Wagon067 says Nikki Haley's speech is a lot better than what I was expecting. Well, sometimes you set the expectations too low. It's about what I would expect, but it was not bad. She came out and the entire time made the case for Trump. Basically, the entire time was making the case for Donald Trump, which that is a good thing. I'm not saying that I trust her. I know she's an opportunist. I know she's a war-thirsty neocon who wants to claw her way back in the inner circle. But thankfully, Trump is probably aware of that at this point. I think he's seen her flip-flop way too many times, but I think he enjoyed her speech, and I think he enjoyed all the speeches. He was cracking up at the DeSantis weekend at Bernie's presidency joke as well, and that's something that I've been saying for a while. Weekend at Biden's. They're holding up basically a guy who's virtually dead as like their figurehead, and when he's left to his own devices on the debate stage, does not work out too well for Joe Biden. Does not work out too well. Let's see. We have more super chats here. Stephen Kanizik says, I just had a Twitter leftist tell me that the Butler individual went for Trump because he loved Trump. You can't make this up. Stupid people. I mean, yeah, it's this guy's. I saw a guy saying he was a MAGA Republican. It's like, why is the MAGA Republican trying to literally kill the leader of the MAGA? These people are stupid. Like, maybe you could say he was like far right or somebody who like wanted to just cause chaos and he wasn't exactly like on the left or inspired by the left. Is there a chance if the guy was a lone actor? It's possible. But to say he was a Trump guy who's a MAGA doesn't work, and that message is not going to stick. It's not going to stick. But you see the left, they're already turning up the temperature to 110 because they know they're completely screwed. That did not last but a day. Oh, we're going to turn it down. Really? I don't think so. Fiji Boy says, could you make a video on the 13 keys? Give us your input. It's a few months ago, but if you scroll through my video history, you can find it. I've made it. And on the exclusive website, we've talked about it, redeaglepolitics.com. It's 16 cents a day, and the merch store is coming back very shortly. Lovely6 says, can transgender procedures on kids be banned nationally through Congress? If so, would that be in Trump's agenda if he wins? It already is in Agenda 47. It's in his real agenda, not the agenda they like to talk about. It's been a part of that agenda for a long time, and it should be passed, and hopefully we get that done. And all the people saying, well, Trump's not a real conservative. Well, if he does that, it'd be more than any Republican would have done over the past 40 years on that issue. Could have stopped it, but they didn't. Let's see. James, again, I don't know if this is a continuation of the first super chat saying we can't win with Trump. Most independents think his personality isn't presidential, and Trump has zero shot at winning without independent support. Well, I disagree. I think you're going to see a very presidential Trump. This is not 2016 Trump. And in some ways, you could maybe make the case that it's a positive for independents because he's very measured. Do you think this clown that you have at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is presidential? Trump has somehow managed to win the personality battle, the decency battle, based off of what the hell he's up against right now that the whole entire world can see. I mean, it's a national embarrassment. This is not Trump versus generic Democrat or Trump versus himself. This is Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, the most unpopular president by approval rating, according to 538, that we have ever had in this country ever since George W. Bush in 2009, when his approval was in the 20s. So think about that. And polarization's much higher now than it was then, too. Lyons 1956 is what Michigan Senate candidate is most electable. Mike Rogers. He's going to win the nomination. Hopefully he wins the general. Eric from Wisconsin for 10 says, if you're from Wisconsin, vote for Eric Hovde. He did a good job tonight as well. Also, the Secret Service field agents and officers don't need clearance from director to take the shot. Those rumors are untrue. Interesting. M says, what's the GOP ceiling in the House? Probably somewhere around the 230s, given the current map. We're very polarized. If Trump wins by enough, maybe you can make the case for some unforeseen flips that probably flip back 2 years later, but still. Jimmy Yousefi says, should we be concerned that down-ballot candidates are down in some polls that Trump is up in? What do you think the result will be at the end of the day? Well, I would be concerned if the Republicans were not leading the top line, because the top line usually matters more. There's more undecideds for the Senate races, and all the undecideds favor Donald Trump at the presidential level. So that kind of tells me that you have a lot of people who just don't know the Senate candidates yet. Now, if this is still an issue, a month before the election, you could maybe say, well, Republicans down ballot might not perform as well as you would hope, but Trump does have this effort to lift up the ticket just by being on the ticket. And a lot of people that just like Trump, that usually don't vote, but they'll vote for Trump, they're going to be voting just straight Republican down ballot, but they don't show up in midterm years, which is kind of a little bit of an issue. That's why Democrats have taken so many electoral victories since Trump left office. Youngkin was able to do well, but he also kind of had his own little brand going on. He had a decent amount of money. He was going up against an unpopular opponent, did what he had to do. You didn't see that happen in a lot of places. But the midterms, I think, if anything, if you take everything into consideration, should be kind of a case that Donald Trump probably is going to win at the way things are going. Biden's approval's fallen since then. Trump brings out more voters to vote for him. And the voters who turn out to vote against him were the Democrats that showed up to turn out against the Republican candidates. So let's see. Lions 1956 says, does Amash have more crossover appeal to win? He voted to impeach Trump and he voted for open borders. So I think that we should probably not worry about that. Philadelphia Wanderer says Trump is officially saint. Well, technically not true. Religious-wise, but he definitely is a very amazing human being, that's for sure. He's a hero. Base Cat says, even Schenck seemed impressed with Blumph at the RNC. Well, because Schenck is kind of undergoing some sort of political awakening where he's actually becoming reasonable, as he always said. Now, Schenck is not on our side, obviously, but he's entertaining, he's funny. I actually enjoy watching him sometimes just because of the entertainment factor. He is a clown. He's on the left, but at the end of the day, he kind of can see the writing on the wall, and he's not like seething, the Trump presidency will end the country. He's not saying that because he's, I don't know, found some way to get his IQ up 20 points over where it was a few years ago. Let's see. Jonathan Williams says, Biden says we settle our differences at the battle box. Yeah, peaceably at the battle box. That's what he said in 2022. And then he said it again in the most recent speech, the battle box. It is a battle box. That's where our battle is going to be decided. I kind of agree with him in a way. But he was just awful. He said again that he graduated from Delaware State, which is not where he went to college whatsoever. He did not graduate from Delaware State. He said that he knows what a black job is, referring to Trump's debate line, saying it's the vice president. So I guess Donald Trump is also black because Vice President Trump is Biden's vice president, according to Biden, which is very interesting. But either way, it just showcases that he admits that he picked Kamala Harris because one reason and two reasons. He boxed himself into picking a woman, and the media pressured him into picking a black woman, and that's why he did it. She's a diversity hire. He's definitely not a good vice president, so that should tell us a lot about her qualifications. John Waffle, H2P, says, remember, it's Jill who's running the show at this point. Mike Oxard is back, and he says, playing around with 270 to win along with poll shifts, I came to a ceiling of 361. For Trump, maybe a hard ceiling of 389 if New York could flip. That's kind of what I realized. It's unlikely it gets to that level, but the rate things are going, you never know. You never know. Sanderson election prediction says Nikki Haley flip-flops so much he's the new John Kerry. I'm waiting for her to mention Mary Cheney like he did in the 2004 debate. Trevor Hint says nothing can stop Trump. They've tried impeaching him twice, indicted him 4 times, tried taking him out for good by this much. This much. That's how much he survived by. Like, it's incredible because usually, shot in the ear or something like that, it's like, oh, his ear's basically has a hole in it. You would think that, oh, well, that's like, getting shot in the finger, basically, in terms of the pain level. But just how close it was just shatters everything. And the intent, it's on a whole new level. It's on a whole new level. But I agree. Everything they've tried has failed. True. FM32047 says, I've heard David Hackman, Lion Tyler Cohen, Harry Crimson Chin Sisson, and Destiny on Piers Morgan's show, and they made Cenk Uygur look like a genius. Yeah, I mean, Piers Morgan went in on Destiny. I saw that earlier today, and good for him. Destiny's a piece of garbage. I knew it. We've all known it for the longest time. He's a liar and a piece of garbage. People think he's a good debater because he takes so much Vyvanse before the debate. His wife left him after he let her sleep with the entire country. It's a disgrace. He's a disgrace. And the fact that people take this guy seriously proves how unserious that they are. And so many quote-unquote conservatives would prop up this guy and have him on their show. Oh, he's like the good liberal. He's the nice liberal. No, he's not. He's not the nice liberal and does not deserve a platform. He doesn't. He basically is defending and was laughing about the whole Trump shooting and the people that died. He's a clown. Let's see. Brittany says, how do you feel about log cabin Republicans? I've talked to a few in D.C. Well, I don't think they're conservative, personally. Now, in terms of their politics, a lot of them are not really all that right-wing in general, but from what I've seen, some of them like Trump, some of them don't like Trump, but they just exist. I wouldn't consider them to be a group that I like, especially because a lot of them try to push social liberalism and weaken the Republican platform on stuff like the alphabet issues. Stephen Kanizik says the speech says battle bus, not battle box. Biden just misread it. You have to remember his speech writers probably play Fortnite. I think battle box is what he said. I didn't hear bus. Unless you're just like making a joke that's kind of going a little bit over my head because I don't really play Fortnite, so I don't know. But yeah, that's it for Super Chats. If you guys want to send in any more Super Chats, feel free. We're probably going to go for another 10, maybe 15 minutes. We'll look in regular chat as well. And we have half the RNC left. JD Vance is yet to speak. I'd be interested in hearing what the chat has to say about JD Vance. JD Vance, what are your thoughts on the pick? Thoughts on the Vance pick? We could ask that question. We have love it. We have like it. Still skeptical, but open to it. And then we have the hated option. So we'll see what the people say, because you have a lot of people on many wings of the GOP that will complain about it, and I kind of want to see what the people have to say. I was, again, first of all, I was probably like open to it, to like it to begin with. I was more worried about the electoral implications of it because I felt there may have been better options, but I really feel like I'm coming around to love it. It's an acquired taste, and I feel like it's going to be that way for a lot of people. A lot of people. Very few people are going to say, I can't vote for Trump because of Vance if they already were voting for Donald Trump, which is something that I think that people need to understand. And he also has this ability to get along with certain people just based off of his credentials that a lot of people that Trump could have picked may not have been able to do that. So I think that it kind of speaks volumes. And we'll do the poll after the Vance speech as well tomorrow. If it's, assuming it's tomorrow, I don't know if they're going to have him speak on the final day. But there's a lot of good speeches left, a lot of good people that have not yet spoken. None of Trump's children have spoke as of now. None of, obviously Vance has not spoken. Krishan Law says his wife left him after he let her sleep with half the country. How is your new poll coming along? Well, we're working on Michigan as it speaks. We're going to get that done. It's not completely finished yet. I'm not abandoning the polling project. Am I going to churn out a poll from every state every single week? Probably not, but we are gonna focus on some polls. Let's see. Joshua Kaplan says, "What's good, Rep? I thought the speeches today were fantastic. My favorites were Vivek's." Yeah, Vivek did well. We didn't talk a lot about it, but it was a good speech. Not great for Vivek standards because he's just a really great public speaker, but it was really good. A great speech all around. And also the lady that ripped Alvin Bragg, I'm curious about yours. I liked a lot of them, including the ones you mentioned. I don't know if I have a clear favorite, but in terms of Vivek, also you had, and I called this the moment he switched parties, you had the Mayor Johnson of Dallas, which is a very blue city in Texas, flipped to be a Republican. He was always conservative, so it's not like his flip was out of nowhere, but it was, or like he was like grifting. He was always good on policy, but it was good to see him switch right after he won re-election. Absolute Chad power move. It was good to see him there, but I wouldn't say it'd be my favorite speech, but I'm not surprised he was there, all things considered. Stephen Kanizik says, I'd like to believe Trump only picked Vance because he's going to reprint the Trump-Pence lawn signs with the PE replacing the VA, or replaced with VA. I mean, I do think that it's not probably a top 3 or maybe even top 5 reason, but I do think that Trump, being the marketing genius he is, not only is he trying to market Vance as a person, which is the main focus, but yeah, Trump Vance does look good on a bumper sticker. It looks good on those signs. Everybody seems to be all right with the pick. Very few people hate the pick. 2% of people in the poll so far hate the pick. Some people are skeptical. I get the skepticism, but Donald Trump is somebody who came this close to dying, and people are going to shit on his pick and act like he picked somebody because they're disloyal. I think you can make a case he might be the least opportunistic of every single person that was on the short list. I think you could make that case. You could. So either way, I think it's a decent pick, and I think he does add something to the table, and there's a lot he could add. It's a high upside pick. At worst, it's not going to move the needle much. At best, he's going to start to really add to the coalition, and maybe, just maybe, 4 years from now, he could be a worthy successor to Trump or heir if he's able to really thrive in that role. Because I feel like, yes, we've talked about VP not being as important as some people make it out to be, but Vance is a little bit different because he's more hands-on. I feel like he's more policy-oriented, and I feel like he's somebody that Trump would kind of want to have a more powerful role than somebody who'd be like a yes man or be forced to be a yes man like a Rubio or a Burgum or some of these other people that were mentioned that were in the mix. So let's see. Ulysses Grant says, I know it's been said, but my mind still cannot comprehend how close we got to losing Trump by literal CMS in the direction we almost headed in, my Lord. No, it's true. That would have been brutal. That would have been absolutely horrific. You talk about certain things that could basically have happened, and you mentioned the second sort of, I guess you'd say, wave of chaos. You would have a massive wave of chaos that would have taken place in the country. Now, it is true conservatives don't typically like to resort to stuff like that, but I guarantee you if they actually did take him out, yes, you probably would have seen some sort of uproar or something happen. It would have been brutal, and that would not have necessarily been a very good sight to see. But it's a good thing he's okay, and he is going to probably, lose a good chunk of his ear. It seems like he lost a good chunk of his ear, but he'll gain a second term and he'll gain legacy, and it's a battle scar. He's been battle tested. He's been shot at before. This whole, Trump is weak, he's not actually masculine or whatever. All those talking points have already been stupid, but now they're even more dumb because the guy gets shot and then he throws his fists up in the air in defiance. I mean, the guy is a once-in-a-lifetime figure. You don't get that with any of these other people. You wouldn't get that with a Ron DeSantis. You wouldn't get that with There's very, very few people you get that with. And that's not to say that all these other people in the GOP are bad people or that they don't bring some policies to the table or whatever. But, we're currently in a very tight window here, and we need somebody who's a fighter and somebody who has a lot of support that can win. And I think Trump is that guy at this point. I feel like he's more electable than ever, mainly because the fatigue against him kind of is kicked in. That would be there against any Republican. Doesn't matter whoever the Republican nominee is. They'd be talking about Project 25. They'd be talking about Roe v. Wade. And Donald Trump probably neutralizes that more than any other Republican does, by the way. Let's see. We have more super chats. Republican liberal says, mailed in my ballot for Mark Lamb and Blake Masters. Lost my Trump sign in a storm a couple days ago. Just gives me an excuse to give Trump more cash. We'll get the Trump Vance sign there. Lions 1956 is ranked Vance, Rubio, Scott, Burgum, Carson, Haley, Youngkin. I would say if you're talking about for the VP pick, yeah, I don't really think ranking them is really a viable thing at this point in terms of, a good usage of time. I think in terms of how solid they are in the issues, I think it goes Vance, probably Carson, then Youngkin, or maybe Rubio now, Rubio 2.0, and Youngkin probably about the same. I think Burgum would be there, then Scott, then Haley, if I had to rank them. Also, if Trump died, it would have gone to a contested convention, I'm sure, and I don't want to think about it. Jonathan Williams says, wish I had JD's LSAT score. Guy went to Yale. Well, I wonder what his score is. Probably not a whole lot higher than mine, all things considered, but when you reach a certain point, 1 to 2 points helps out a ton. I mean, let's be real. 1 to 2 points is like everything when you're like around the 170 mark. Easy E says, Joe's speech today was terrible. What they are doing to Biden is just elder abuse. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It was a train wreck what I saw. I mean, it is kind of elder abuse in a way. I don't feel much sympathy for Biden, but it's still hard to watch somebody, even if they're a corrupt scumbag, to be put through. Like, you don't want to watch that. You don't want to sit there and watch. Like, it's funny when he messes up sometimes, but it can't, when you laugh at a certain point, it's like, okay, this is kind of just getting sad. And that's what I think a lot of people are seeing. I don't think he's going to get sympathy vote from it, though. I think that it's a little different. I think it's more like we'll put him out of his misery kind of vote. Trump has probably the sympathy vote factor just because he was almost killed. M says, remember when Destiny called for redneck militiamen to cut down the Summer of Love rioters? He says, we are the ones who love to incite. He lost a lot of, I think he got banned off of Twitch for a while or something because of that. Now, Destiny is a clown. Some may say contrarian. Some may say he's just kidding, or he's just starting a conversation. It doesn't matter. Stop platforming this clown. He's not that smart. He's a loser. His wife has fucked the entire country, half the country at this point, and he's okay with it. Like I said, this guy he's not worth platforming. It's all conservatives that prop him up. That's how he's been able to get this audience. It's these fake debates, basically, that he does, these stage debates with all these people. That's how he's been able to get prominence. He's a grifter, and the guy's like 5'3". He's 5'3". And there's no reason to validate him by debating him. He's not acting in good faith. Just let it go. I probably would have considered debating him if it wasn't for the recent comments, but that's just the nail in the coffin. I wouldn't definitely platform him here. That's for sure. He's gonna be the first 5 months. He's got 5 months. 5 months. Let's see. Sven Olsen says, is it just my imagination, or has Trump changed his persona somewhat since the attempt on his life? I don't know. It's hard to tell because he hasn't really spoken much. I heard a clip of him talking to RFK, or RFK Jr. on the phone that got leaked. And he was talking about his call with Biden, and it seemed like he was asking RFK Jr. to drop out and join his team, and talked about how, Trump is not really for all this vaccination, which kind of, all the people that are like, it's Trump with the vaccine. It's like, no, Trump kind of still gets it. He wouldn't exactly be saying that if he didn't. And I think that maybe if RFK Jr. would be in the administration, it'd be combating big pharma in some way, shape, or form, which would be a big benefit. I don't know if it's going to happen, but if he drops out, endorses Trump, that gives Trump probably some voters. Wyatt for 10 says, as a 22-year-old hardcore conservative, I found the whole convention really preachy. Found a few moments great, but mostly it was cringy and hard to watch. I don't think that's the takeaway from a lot of people. I really don't. Preachy as in which way? Because some people were saying it wasn't preachy enough, so now it's too preachy. I don't get it. But I didn't think it was cringeworthy personally. But again, even if younger people didn't like it as much, the average voter is what, like 60? The average Republican voter is probably in their 60s, if not like upper 50s. Maybe because of age depolarization, which does seem to be kicking in. Also, Vance seems too big government. Well, he's effective government. He's a populist, which is what he is. He's not somebody who's just going to tax people. He's not going to raise your taxes. He's not going to do dumb things. But yeah, he's one of these people that's like, if the government can step in and help and be a protectionist in terms of trade or something like that, or have strong borders and strong leadership, like he's one of those guys, which I think we need that in our country. Brian Smith says, Trump was shot at 6:11 p.m. Ephesians 6:11, put on the armor of God so that you may be able to stand firm against the tactics of the devil. Yeah, somebody super chatted that yesterday. Very, very interesting. I don't know what it exactly means, but it is at a minimum a strange coincidence and a verse that fits the mood. So we'll end the poll right now. Let's see. So 39% like it, 32% love it, 25% are still skeptical but open to it, 2% hate it. So again, the hate is mainly, I think, a very loud thing, as we see. Lions 1956's story time about your first date. What happened? I don't even remember. I don't know what would even qualify it. I don't really, because there's probably several things you could point to and say, oh, it was that. Oh, it was that. So I don't really have a story that would fit that bill. Gerald Armstrong says, I don't love or hate the pick. Vance says to show me something tomorrow. It's one thing to criticize Trump. It's another to call him Hitler. Well, he said could be, and that was back in the day, which I agree. I was skeptical when he ran for Senate, but I think he's proven himself. And a lot of people, when Trump initially first ran, on the right were saying similar things and bought and drank the Kool-Aid. And Vance has admitted that he was wrong, and we'll see. I think that but I agree with you that he does have a lot to prove to some people, because some people are skeptical. I think that's true with every VP pick that Trump could have picked, though. They would have had to show why they were worthy of being selected. Let's see. Colby says, in your opinion, is the AIPAC connection to Vance sketchy? Well, is the connection they have to Trump sketchy? I mean, Trump spoke at their conference in 2016. So many edgy 18-year-olds on the internet probably don't remember that, but that was back in the primary even. So I really don't know how that would be sketchy. Most Republicans support Israel because a lot of the Republican voter base supports Israel. And that might dwindle over time as younger people, I guess you would say, who are a little bit more skeptical, even if they're not like fully anti, kind of rise up in the population chart. Younger Republicans tend to be more opposed to things like foreign aid, which I'm opposed as well across the board. So I don't know how it's sketchy. You have people that are funded by organizations that get into office. Every single possible person that people will point to, besides maybe somebody like a Thomas Massie on the right, has probably been funded by them. So again, I think a lot of it is just trying to pick apart certain things and find outrage where it might not be there, and you might disagree with some of these stances like foreign aid that is also part of Trump's stance, for the record. But Vance has been very strong in terms of his America First foreign policy in regards to Ukraine, regards to Syria, regards to a lot of different places. I think he's a big asset, and I think he's going to take the Republican Party in a more America First direction, being by Trump's side, regardless of whatever he thinks about the Israel conflict. People will say, what about the bomb Iran quote? If they actually listen to the Fox News interview instead of jumping to the outrage, whatever, on Twitter, they would hear that he says that's probably not what you do. But if you're going to do it, you got to just make sure you make it swift and just destroy him. And that's exactly what Trump has said going all the way back to 2015. It's consistent. Trump said if you do go into Iraq, about the Iraq war, it's got to be swift. But Vance said you gotta work in many other ways to get around the conflict, which is exactly Trump's agenda. You probably wouldn't get that same answer from a Marco Rubio or a Doug Burgum, who wanted to increase Ukraine aid because he called it vital, said he wouldn't do business with Donald Trump. So again, I really fail to understand the Vance critics. Who else would be better in that role? Because a lot of them have also said a lot of anti-Trump things. They have more neoconservative connections. I think a lot of it is derangement syndrome. You could chalk it up as derangement syndrome. Let's see. Stephen Kanizik says Destiny is a lesser version of Vaush. They're different in different ways, but I think that they're both bad, in my opinion, for different reasons. One was literally caught with, animated CP and horse pornography on his computer. He showed it on stream. That was just brutally disgusting. And then you have the other guy who's cheering over the deaths because he thinks he's edgy and contrarian. Doesn't work that way. Miku Huntu says, why are people taking the sides of the OnlyFans? So he's referring to Amber Rose. Probably because they think that she's somebody who's prominent, which she has a lot of followers on Instagram, and she supports Trump and is trying to get some of her followers to vote for him. And I have mixed feelings on it because that is technically a bonus, but again, she does have a checkered past. Either way, it is what it is. I wish she would have at least covered up her face tattoo before she walked out on stage, because that's the first time at any convention that somebody with that has walked on. But it's like, I don't know, she's like dollar store Kim Kardashian in that regard. She dated Kanye West. She's dated a lot of rappers. She's not as famous. She has less pull. But it's like you have somebody with a big following who basically said, do your own research. Don't listen to what the media says. And if people hear that and some of them do it and some vote for Trump, I guess it's a positive. I have mixed feelings on it. I wish she would probably delete her. Apparently she didn't delete her OnlyFans. I think she probably should. Now, I don't know what she does on it. She could use it like a Patreon. Could be for a podcast. I don't know. I wouldn't really want to know. But Trump is, I guess, trying to not leave any stones unturned. You can have a few sketchy people, I guess, that enter the mix as a result. But like I said, 2020 was worse. You had Kim Klacik, who, she was a former stripper who sucked up enough donations when she ran for Congress to cost Republicans the House. I think that's far worse. At least you could justify, it's a celebrity speaking, even though she hasn't really been all that relevant in many years in regards to Amber Rose. So it's not perfect, but you had a lot of things that were, people are asking questions about this RNC. It was far worse at the previous RNCs. People are acting like this is a new phenomenon. It's all outrage bait. And the people in the real world actually liked the speech, from what I could tell. I said it was okay. It was better than expected. And people were like, no, it was one of the better speeches of the night. And it's like, I don't know if I could really agree with that. But, it could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. Mike Oxard says, in return for dropping out and endorsing Trump, he should be the head of the FDA. I don't know if the president appoints that position, but he would fit there. FDA, wouldn't it be like the CDC that would have more pull over stuff like that? I don't know if I guess actually you're right about the FDA. I don't know why I thought of DEA. Actually that would be really good. We got to talk about getting the seed oils out of foods. That's a big problem. It doesn't get talked about enough. Taco Bell used to cook with coconut oil back in the 1980s. Our fast food used to be cooked with non-seed oils and probably was far healthier. The average, diet of the American back in the 1950s was just absolutely you'd look at this like, what the hell did they eat? But the obesity rate was nothing. Steak and donut sandwich. Everyone's seen that Family Guy meme, but it's basically true. That's what people ate in the 1950s. For the most part, you had a lot of unhealthy things, but you had people that were not obese. You had people that were healthier. Life expectancy was going up, and then as it started going down, yeah, it's a problem. I encourage people, if they can, to cook at home when they can. It's what I've been trying to do lately, and I've been probably slimming down a little bit. Not like I was fat before or anything, but still. Let's see. We have more super chats. Colby says, do you believe Vance is more MAGA than Trump? I've been debating. It depends. Trump is one of a kind, I feel like. More MAGA, like he's more policy oriented, but I don't think that makes him more MAGA, because MAGA, I feel like, is also vibes. But I think he complements him well. It's a hell of a lot better than Mike Pence. Nasty Mandy says, was JD your pick? How was the day? I missed it. It was a good day. But JD was not my pick, but I liked the pick. And looking back at it, it could very well have been the best pick. And I'm starting to feel that as more time goes by. So House of Lamar says, chances of Many Men by 50 Cent being used by DJT. I think it's possible. I'd probably say it's not as likely. He probably walks out to the song he usually walks out to, Proud to Be an American. As the show ends, he'll probably play the song that he plays now, the Hold On, I'm Coming, which is so perfect because that's what he's saying to the country. And yeah, that speech is it's got to be good. It's got to be good, I'm sure. We got Vince Dow in chat. It says the GOP isn't cool enough for that. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a generational thing too. I also think that 50 Cent, he was approached about making an appearance. I think he just didn't want to do it, but we'll see. Gerald Armstrong says, I know Ben Carson's a mild-mannered man, but I thought he did a good job in his speech. I thought he did too. He is mild-mannered. That was my one critique of some of the people that said he would be like a good VP, because he's very quiet, but he is loyal. I think he'd do well on the job. For sure, he would do well on the job. But in terms of like the whole contrast with Trump, 2016, I feel like he would have been a better complement to 2016 Trump. But still, he didn't have any experience then, and neither did Trump. So I don't know how Trump really felt about a ticket of two people that just didn't have a lot of experience on it. But he's a very smart guy, very cerebral, very respectable. And he was wearing those black tennis shoes, which were pretty cool. Best shoes of the night, by the way. So I think it'll be the last call for Super Chats if we have any, and we'll probably end in a couple minutes here. It is almost 1 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. So, yep. Looking at the regular chat. Let's see. Trump is launching a line of shoes. Yeah, I actually like some of the shoes. Like, I did kind of like the Trump shoes initially, but it's like you like them probably more as like, oh, it's Trump's thing than I like the shoes. But then he releases like these 4 different shoes. I actually like the shoes. Like, there's a couple of shoes that I would like actually buy, like even if Trump didn't make them. And to be fair, this is a guy who had a clothing line. He's not new to this kind of stuff. People are like, well, this is out of order. You can't do this. And it's like, yeah, he can. Don't tell the guy what to do, first of all. Second of all, he has his own ties. He has his own clothing. I don't know if he still does. I'm sure the brand might exist. I know like Ivanka had her clothing brand, and there's plenty of other clothing brands, but still. Colby says, love, you've been watching for years. Keep it up, please. Well, hopefully for years to come, and hopefully we'll have a lot to analyze over the next 4 years, and hopefully it's not part 2 of this disastrous administration. Francis XL says, what do you think about the Sikh prayer at the RNC? I'm personally just really against euphemism as a general rule. I love the Vance pick and Vivek. I thought it was unnecessary, and some people are insulted. I think it insults probably more Christians and probably even some Muslims and other people, more so than it like brings in people to the party, brings in Sikhs, because Sikhs are not a very common people, for one. For two, it's just bizarre. You declare some God that nobody's ever heard of as the one true God on stage. It's just, I don't really see it. But it is true. The people that are saying like, oh, this is proof that the RNC's fallen off and that they're caving or they're going woke, like they did this even in 2012. So I critique it, you can critique that, but don't act like this is some new phenomenon or, oh, the Republican Party is becoming more and more useless. Like they've always been that way. It's getting better. There's no need to pander, in my opinion. She can do whatever she wants on her free time, but I just feel as if it's just weird, It's just kind of weird. But that's my take on it. Some people will disagree. Most people probably agree. Trump was watching it. I think he was a little puzzled. He was a little confused too. But exactly, could have done, if it was done in English, and it could have been done more like, I don't know, like a Unitarian type thing where it's like vague, where if you are a Christian bowing your head, like you would think it refers to like actual God, probably would have been received not as, I guess you would say, divisive or poorly. So again, like I said, I don't think it's a time and a place, for one. For two, that's not the place. For three, that's not the time. And that's my take on it. Just thought it was out of place and weird. I don't have anything against Sikhs, whatever, but they're not a very common group of people. Probably she was the only one in that building. I know Nikki Haley grew up as a Sikh, but even now she's Christian, probably for political purposes, to be fair. At least that might be part of it. But what can I say? What can I say? Yeah, the 10 will decide Wisconsin. It's true. Yeah, no, I don't think so. There's a lot more of them in Canada, from what I can understand, but Canada is basically becoming like New Delhi at this point, which is a whole nother topic of discussion. Hopefully they get new leadership too. I think their election's next year. But anyways, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. We didn't have as many people tonight, but that's okay. The big night is not even tomorrow night. It's on Thursday. So I'll be streaming tomorrow night after the RNC. I'll be streaming Thursday. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, by the way. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. Comment down. Well, if you're on replay, comment down below. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell. Follow me on social media. I'll see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.